Hi, I'm Bill Coye, Chair of the Board of Selectmen of Plaistow. I'm here tonight with Chief Knutsen, Chief from Plaistow. And we're here tonight, we just want to get some information out there on the ALS program that's going to be coming and Plaistow is going to be helping out with. Hopefully this information you'll find to be very helpful. How are you tonight, Chief?
I'm doing good, very well,
Good.
thank you.
Good. I guess maybe the best place to start is maybe do a little background, exactly what the Exeter ALS was and how we got to this point.
So Exeter ALS is a paramedic level advanced life support service that was provided through Exeter Hospital out of the town of Exeter, obviously, that would provide this paramedic or paramedics in a special response vehicle, and it would serve, they were contracted with 13 communities throughout Rockingham County to provide a paramedic when there times were needed that a town was transporting a patient that needed that level of service.
So, and from what I understand, the Exeter ALS, that's going away when they merged with, was it Beth Israel?
Yeah, so Beth Israel's merging with Exeter Hospital this last September. So September 2024, Beth Israel initially put out a notice to all the towns that this very important service was going to be going away in 10 days. And with that short period of time, the towns that were going to be impacted, there was no way that they could plan to figure out how to get paramedic services to their community in that time frame. Oh. So that created a pretty widespread, very deep panic amongst the public safety community, which got some state representatives and executive council involved in looking at the contract with Beth Israel and the merger, and come to find out that they really needed to give a 90-day notice. So that pushed the end date until the end of December of 2024, still creating a lot of concern amongst the public safety community, because even a 90-day notice is pretty quick to try to replace something that, if you take it away, this truly would have made a public health crisis within the Rockingham County area, not having those paramedic services for the patients that need it.
Okay. And roughly about how many towns would this affect?
This was, they were contracted with 13 towns. They did have a policy that they would respond really to anybody that called them, but for the bulk of their response was contracted towns, which was about 13, and I think the population was about 70 to 80,000 people.
Okay. And why is the ALS service vital to these communities?
So a lot of these communities are small to mid-sized communities that either work with call departments or have limited staffing on duty, and the majority of them don't have paramedic providers on the staff. So when the ambulance responds, they respond with either an EMT basic or an EMT advanced, which are two of the lower level licensure requirements. So if you have a really sick or critically injured patient and you need that paramedic, they don't have them to provide. So that's when they would call for what would be an ALS intercept, and that's where these paramedics come in, meet up with the ambulance either at the scene or as they're transporting to the hospital, and they could start providing that critical life-saving care before they reach emergency room.
Okay, perfect. Now, is this the same as an ambulance service?
This is not the same as an ambulance service. So an ambulance service is a licensed agency, entity, if you will, that has an ambulance and transports the patients. So an intercept program interacts with an ambulance service, but they don't provide an ambulance, and we're not providing an ambulance with this service. We're just providing two highly trained paramedics that will respond out of an SUV, like a Tahoe or Suburban or something. They bring all the necessary life-saving equipment with them, because even some of the ambulances that these towns have, they're not licensed at the paramedic level. So not only do they not have the paramedic, but they don't have the equipment either. So these paramedics bring that equipment with them. So we're going to provide an SUV that responds out of the Brentwood Fire Department, and we're going to provide an SUV that responds out of our fire department to meet up with a transporting ambulance. But we will not be providing an ambulance for these communities.
Okay. And I guess the next big thing, question that I know a lot of people have is, how does this affect the Plaistow Fire Department and our ambulance service in town?
So it has no negative effects to our town or our department. We're not changing our staffing model that we currently have. So we still have staff for the fire engine. We still have staffing dedicated for our ambulance service. What this will bring to our community is another paramedic that's maybe even a higher trained paramedic than some of our current staff. And this paramedic will also be a supervisor for the shift for the EMS side of our operations, out of our fire station, and the Brentwood Intercept vehicle as well. So we're bringing another layer of supervision. We're bringing another layer of high level, the highest level of pre-hospital emergency care possible with that paramedic. And all of that has a zero impact on our taxpayers. This service is not going to cost our taxpayers any money.
Okay. And the next question would be, say a call comes out of town and they need the ALS service. Do our ambulances go as well, or is it just the ALS would go?
No, it's only the ALS that would go. So if there's two different categories, if you will. One is the intercept service. That's when we're providing a paramedic to intercept with an ambulance. That intercept can occur at a scene, so in someone's house, or at a car crash, or it could occur as the ambulance is driving to the hospital. But when they're requesting this service, and what we're providing with this service is an intercept with paramedics, our ambulance does not go. Now, that doesn't relinquish us from mutual aid. So if another town, say for example Kingston, they're out of ambulances because they're on multiple calls and they need an ambulance to respond, we would respond to our ambulance as a mutual aid request, which would be kind of separate than what this program is.
Yep. So just to make sure, I want to make sure I get it right and everyone else. So when the ALS, a call comes in for the ALS, they just go. Our ambulance will still stay in town.
Absolutely.
And just keep operating the way it always has, so it won't detract from our service.
It won't detract from our service. This is actually enhancing our service, not degrading it. So we would not be committing our ambulance on intercept calls unless that other town was calling for a mutual aid ambulance.
Okay. And I know one of the other big points on this is the funding for this. And I know there is some money funding coming in for the first year. And I know right now there's already been a considerable amount that has come in. And how's the funding going to work going forwards to make sure Plaistow doesn't?
So kind of starting back a little bit with some history of the development of the plan. The notice went out, like I said, in September of 2024, and all the chiefs got together through the Seacoast Chiefs Association to try to solve this problem, right? This is a public health crisis that's getting ready to occur. And with Exeter ALS being the only intercept program in this area, there was no one else to turn to, right, to look for solutions. So the fire chiefs came together looking at, okay, what can we do as a group to fix that? As our department, Plaistow Fire Department, has grown over the last 4 to 5 years, we have continually set ourselves up for success for not just immediate needs, but for long-term needs. That success was based on the fact that a lot of departments in this state, fire departments, require dual role certification. So you have to be a firefighter and a paramedic. Well, that's hard to find. So when we set up our program and how we want to service our community, we separated those divisions. We have a fire division and we have an EMS division. And we don't have to require the firefighter paramedic anymore. We could just hire EMS people. We could just hire paramedics. So that allows us to now entertain a plan like this, that we already are very successful with hiring and providing high quality patient care. Now all we have to do is hire some more staff, put them in a remote location, supply them with the vehicles and the equipment, and we could seamlessly take over the service and provide it. So we developed a plan, what it would look like, submitted it to all the towns that had representatives there, and they looked at that plan. They had the opportunity to come up with other plans. They brought in some other vendors to come in for private organizations that could do this, either for profit and not for profit. And at the end of the day, they favor the municipal service because we're not in it to make money. We have to make the budget. We already have a good working relationship with each other. And we had already proven over the last year that we had a very solid EMS program that we've established and is going very well. Part of my background is, we might have just started an EMS service here in town this last year, but my background stems from 29 years of experience. This will be the practically fourth service that I've been directly responsible getting up and moving off the ground. So I have a very extensive background in successfully building out a public safety service. So they like that background I could bring to the table as well. Part of my plan that I suggested was the towns that were impacted, those 13 towns, you're talking September, October, November. Their budgets are already done, right? I understand municipal budgeting.
Right.
Fire chiefs understand municipal budgeting probably better than anybody, right? And there was no way these towns could start paying for something immediately because their budgets have already been proposed, presented, and probably approved by now. So I was a big advocate on the fact that we could make something work, but we have to have funding from other sources. So working with the Chiefs Association, the Seacoast Fire Chiefs, working with the president, Chief McQuillan, who's a chief in Portsmouth, working with our executive council, Honorable Janet Stevens, and working with our state attorney general's office, we were able to reach out to Beth Israel and get them to fund the infrastructure in the first year of operational expenses. So they're funding $2 million that they've already paid $1.2 million of that.
Right, and that's what's in the budget to run it for next year.
That's what's in the budget for this first year, and that includes the capital needs as well. So besides the annual operating budget, you got to have equipment. So Beth Israel and Exeter Hospitals, besides the money, they're going to be donating both of the vehicles that are currently outfitted now and all the equipment that's in those vehicles. So that's another couple $100,000 worth of investment that they're going to be donating to this system. We got the money that's come in. It's going to allow us to purchase the needed infrastructure. It's going to allow us to get this program up and going, and it's going to pay for the first year of operational expenses to get everything so we could keep that first year for these 13 towns status quo, right, for them, that they're not going to lose services. They currently charge a pay-per-use system. We're going to implement that same charge rate for them. And they won't see really any difference in their budgets that they've already planned for 2025. Along with Beth Israel and Exeter Hospital, we're working with some very generous philanthropy donors that are going to continuously donate money year after year into this program to help offset the costs and to make sure this program becomes sustainable. So after year one, year two, we'll look at how many towns are contracted with us, how much money do we have coming in from donations from philanthropy groups, and then there would probably transition over to a subscription fee to those towns of this is what we need to have to cover the budget. That also includes money to put back for capital and money to put back for unforeseen expenses. All that is put in place to protect two things. One, the service, to make sure it's sustainable. Right. The second thing is to protect our town, because we will never ever be a donor town, and we cannot contribute funding to this program. Right. So at the end of the day, if something does not go right and we lose funding, the towns don't want to pay into it, whenever that pot of money that's paying for the service is gone, that's when that would be the sunsetting date of that program. So you got the original 13 towns. There's some big happenings going around us that could potentially negatively impact us if we weren't planning for something like this. So there's surrounding towns around us that are changing and moving away from their contracted ambulance provider.
Right.
At the end, that could be a very good thing, but it could also create additional needs from surrounding towns when the system gets busy. So that's what the other intercept vehicle is going to be, is going to come out of our fire station here in Plaistow that helps service those surrounding towns, so we could keep our ambulance in service and it's not going on mutual aid calls all the time and taking it away from our residents. So this is how altogether strengthening up the whole system. We have funding in place to pay for everything. The towns are going to be taken care of for the next year. It gives them more time to start planning. We already have philanthropists in the queue, if you will, to help fund it as well. So I have no doubt that this will continue to be a successful long-term solution.
And I do know one thing: this service is not part of Plaistow's town budget.
It is not part of the Plaistow town budget. It's not part of our fire department budget. Everything that comes into this is accounted for, and expended out is accounted for, and none of it is touching town funding.
And by having a service like this in town, does that help bring extra training into the ambulance service and the fire department?
It will, because part of this plan, part of this program is our clinical providers will be sent to high-level training and have instructors come in to deliver that high-level training. So we're talking like critical care level paramedics coming in, teaching classes, sending our staff to like Boston MedFlight to take classes. All that is being paid for out of this system for all the paramedics. So that makes our paramedics that we currently have even better. It's bringing more paramedics to the area that makes it better. And training really is the hinge that makes everything work well. So this strengthens that up, which makes the whole system better. On top of us receiving training, this budget and the plan is going to go kind of above and beyond what they used to get with the current ALS system. Is where we've included hundreds of hours of training that's going to be delivered in the region. Most of that will be taught through our providers. So anytime you really want to be good at something, learn the craft and then start teaching it, and then you really get good at it. So that makes our providers even better, because they're going to be out teaching throughout the region as well.
Yep. Well, I think the big takeaway I'm starting to get from this, and we've talked before about this as well, it's not going to take anything away from what we currently have. It's going to enhance it between training, just having an extra paramedic on duty in case we needed it right here. And it does allow us to be a good neighbor to everybody else as well.
It does, and that all those, you look at, you can improve training with no cost to the town. That's a win. We're improving staffing availability to the town at no cost. That's a win. Right, so just those two things alone is our residents are getting a tremendous benefit for providing this service. The management of the service, all that stuff is being hired, so it takes some of the weight off of me of the daily EMS operations that our department currently has to provide anyway. So we'll have more supervision to help ease that load off my management as well.
Right, so it has its own staff.
It has its own staff that's going to take care of all that. The being a good neighbor, that goes a lot further than what some people realize.
Yep.
And I think what you'll see here with this as we are being a good neighbor, with no burden to our tax base, the town will see good things come back to that. Part of that also includes, which we've been really successful with, grants. When you start delivering a system that's a regional basis like this is, that opens up even more grant funding opportunities and allows us to score higher on grants. So we have a better chance of getting them when they're competitive, right? And you're trying to get a grant. This is all going to help us get that. And it helps us uh, fix things. It helps us replace infrastructure needs. So kind of all that ties back to almost being that good neighbor is that's going to come back and pay dividends back to our town.
Yeah, because the first thing I think of where it could help out is with dispatch, because I know that's constantly has to be upgraded and all that. So I'm hoping that that'll mean more grants could come in and help us with that to get that up and keep that maintained where it should be.
Absolutely, we'll have some more grant funding available for us. And like I said, when most of the grants that are available for public safety, they're all competitive. Mm-hmm. So you're not the only department asking for them. Right. Someone's looking at them and someone's grading them. And at the end of the day, they want to do the most good for the highest amount of people. Yep. So if they're going to give community A $1 million, or if there's $1 million available out there, and community A is only going to help 6,000 people, and community B is going to help 80,000 people, they're going to give it to community B every single time. Right. Yeah.
You know, which makes sense. And I know another big takeaway I take from this too, it's not coming out of the town budget. It's to come out of the fire department's budget. I know we've talked about it. As soon as this does, if it does cost the town any money out of our pocket, then we're moving away from it and somebody else can take it over.
And we'll stop it before it costs the town money. So that's important. Right. You know, it's I don't want people to think that, well, once it costs $1,000 or $10,000, okay, that's when we're going to turn it off. No, we'll know if we don't have the funding coming in. Everything has to be prepaid, right? So this first year's prepaid. We're collecting money throughout this first year, which adds money to that pot, right? As we move into 2026, we look at what's in the pot, what donations have come in. Here's what the budget is. We know what we have to expend out. We know we have to have a little bit of a safety cushion to account for, you know, unanticipated needs. Moving forward, in like year 2 contract, when the town signed, they have to pay the money up front, right? So we're not floating money. We're not investing anything. We know what's in the bank and when that's going to run out. So that would give us that deadline of, okay, you know, worst case scenario, there's no funding coming in, there's no donations, the towns don't want to pay into it, and we have X amount of money left. We could calculate to the payroll that on this date, this is when we're going to sunset it, because this is when we're going to be out of money or almost out of money.
Right, and I would think you'd have to know by like around September to know what it will cost every town, because then that's budget season.
Budget season. So absolutely, that's how that's going to work. Is as we get through this first year, we'll start working on year 2 and funding for that. We have some very powerful stakeholders out there that are advocates for us to get some money in. They want to see this sustain. And then we could look at, okay, all 13 towns stay on board. We have 2 towns surrounding us that want to come on board, 5 towns surrounding us that want to come on board. Whatever that number is, we could take the difference now and figure out what each town needs to pay into the system. Again, at that point, it'll become a subscription service, and that fee has to be paid up front for us to continue it. So we're not floating money or anticipating money that might not be realized or come in.
So I would think the contracts would almost have to be like a yearly type of contract, probably.
That will be, right, yearly contract.
Okay.
And our contract will be written in a way that allows us to exit without any cost to our town.
Right. And what's the go live date for the service?
So we have two go live dates. The first one we're trying to aim for is March the 1st, because that's when the contracted ambulance provider for our surrounding communities is leaving. So their last day is February 28th at midnight.
Now, how many communities around us are going to lose that service?
5.
Wow.
5. It's gotten too cost prohibitive for them to continue with a for-profit ambulance service. So that's the problem with inherently when you have a contracted ambulance provider, whether it be for-profit or not for-profit, at the end of the day, they have to make money somehow, right? And they're not doing it for free, right? There's a profit margin, especially if it's a for-profit service. And it's just gotten so cost prohibitive to stay with them that these towns are going to go on their own. Some of them are kind of grouping up with each other. Some of them are going on their own. That in itself could be concerning with upcoming budgets. and that's where, without this paramedic coming out of here, could have created an environment that could have negatively impacted our service. Because if these towns don't staff where they need it for their ambulance service, they're constantly calling our ambulance to respond in their community. One, that's really not mutual aid, right? When you start calling daily for an ambulance from another community, that's not mutual aid. That's abusing the system. So as a town, we would have to decide are we going to allow that to occur? Is that taking away from our services that our taxpayers are actually paying for? And that's yes. So then are we going to be the bad guys and say, okay, we're not coming to your town no more? Yeah. Well, that's hard now because we need them to come to our town when we need it. Yeah. So to prevent all that hardship from occurring, we plan ahead. And it's like, that's why this vehicle coming out of this station is going to be important for those towns. It gives them a year to help figure some things out as well and utilize it. So I know some towns, they have a pretty good plan. Some towns, they don't have any paramedics in their plan, or very few, so they're going to need the service.
So if there's no paramedics, then obviously this ALS, it's a must for them.
It's a must for them, yes.
Yep. From what I see and everything we've talked about, you've spoken in front of the Selectman. I see this being a positive for the town and helping out all the communities around us. We've spoken about the benefits to the town, why it's necessary to have this service, because it's a void that needs to be filled for many communities. It does put another paramedic in town for us at no additional cost for us. It's not going to cost the town any money, which I think is the big thing, and we'll plan ahead, and if it does, then it's time to reevaluate and for Plaistow to back away. Is there anything that you'd like to add?
Not that really comes to mind. I mean, I know the big concern is this is going to cost our town money, and it's not. It can't. And it's done that way for several reasons. One, do we need this 24/7? It would be nice, but I'm not big on being a donor town.
Correct.
Right. So that's one of the big reasons. And then two, you don't want to negatively impact the system if there's a budget cut or reduction, right? So if you take that equation out, now we're not negatively impacting a service that we're offering for another community.
Right.
Right. So it kind of makes that a little bit cleaner with that. And it all ties back to, our planning, our ability to just hire paramedics. These other towns aren't not wanting to do this, they just maybe didn't know how to do it.
Yep.
Right, so we've brought the how to the table, and they like that.
Yep, and the one other thing I wanted to bring up too is part of this budgeting that'll cover admin costs and all that, not just the manpower, but the admin costs.
There is some shared budgeting in there if there's an increased workload on anybody that we currently have on staff, the budget will help cover anything that comes up.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you very much for your time tonight. Hopefully that helped everybody out there to understand the ALS service a lot better and the need for other communities and why Plaistow is doing what they're doing and how it's not going to affect our town budget. And once it starts to affect our town budget, if it does cost anything, then it will be time for Plaistow to go our own way and everyone else can, I guess, go their own way. But thank you very much. And I guess if anybody has any further questions, they could definitely contact
I always have an open door policy with our customers, our community. I encourage you to come to the fire station, to call me, to email me. I know a lot of people like Facebook, and that's where they expect to get all the information. I look at that more as gossip than factual. So please, if you have questions or concerns, feel free to come to the fire station and call me. I'll meet with you, do whatever you need to get the information that you need to make sure it's factual.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much, and thank you everyone out there, and please let us know if there are any questions. We appreciate it. Thank you.